Your Honor, I respectfully request to represent myself in this appeal. Judge Caldwell's eyes traveled from the boy's worn shoes to his black face. A cruel smile spread across his lips. A little black boy from the ghetto thinks he can play lawyer in my courtroom? Laughter erupted. The prosecutor snickered. Someone raised their phone, recording. Caldwell leaned forward, voice dripping with contempt. Go home, kid. Go back to your Section 8 housing where you belong. You don't have the breeding, the intelligence, or the right to stand here. No one defended him. Not a single soul. Isaiah Green stood alone, 16 years old, no lawyer, no allies, just 12 words he had memorized for this moment. But none of them knew what was coming. In exactly 30 seconds, that arrogant smirk would freeze. And before sunset, the man who mocked a black teenager would be the one in handcuffs. 8 months before that moment in the courtroom, the Green family still believed in tomorrow. They lived in a small house on the south side of Chicago, the kind of house where paint peeled in summer and pipes froze in winter, where the roof leaked when it rained and the heating barely worked in January. But love filled every corner. Pictures of family lined the walls. The smell of Gloria's cooking filled the kitchen every evening. And despite everything they had lost, they still had each other. Gloria Green, 68 years old, had raised her 2 grandsons in that house for the past 8 years, ever since their mother passed and their father was taken away. She worked part-time at the church, cleaning and organizing, her arthritic hands aching by the end of each day. But she never complained, not once. The Lord gives us what we can handle, she would say. And He gave me these 2 boys. That's more than enough. Darnell Green was 22. He worked night shifts at a warehouse on the west side of the city, loading trucks from 10 p.m. until 6 in the morning. The work was brutal. Heavy boxes, cold winters, supervisors who treated workers like machines. But Darnell never missed a shift. He couldn't afford to. After work, he would come home, shower the sweat and grime off his body, and sit at the kitchen table with his EMT textbooks. He was studying to become a paramedic. Had been studying for 2 years now, slowly working through the certification program at the community college. Classes during the day when he could stay awake. Practice exams on weekends. Clinical rotations whenever he could get them. He wanted to save lives. It was the only dream he had left. Somebody's got to do the helping, he would say whenever Isaiah asked why he pushed himself so hard. Might as well be me. Lord knows nobody helped us when we needed it. Isaiah was 16, a junior at Southside High School. He was quiet, the kind of quiet that teachers mistook for shyness, but was actually something else entirely. Isaiah watched. He listened. He remembered. His teachers called it a photographic memory, though that wasn't quite accurate. It was more like his brain was a sponge that absorbed information and never let go. Dates, names, faces, conversations. Once Isaiah encountered something, it stayed with him forever. His grandmother called it a gift from God. Isaiah wasn't sure about that. Gifts were supposed to make your life better. And remembering everything meant remembering the bad things too. The things you wanted to forget but couldn't. Like the sound of his father's voice the day they took him away. Like the weight of his mother's hand going limp in the hospital bed. Like the look in Darnell's eyes when he came home from the trial, defeated, broken, already giving up. Isaiah remembered it all. Their mother, Linda Green, had died 8 years ago. Heart failure, according to the death certificate. But Isaiah knew the truth. She died of grief. She died of watching her husband, the love of her life, the father of her children, get dragged away in handcuffs for a crime he didn't commit. She died of fighting a system that didn't care about truth or justice or the destruction it left in its wake. After James was convicted, Linda tried to keep going. She went to work. She cooked dinner. She helped the boys with their homework. She did all the things a mother was supposed to do. But something inside her had broken. She stopped eating first, just picked at her food, moving it around the plate, never really consuming anything. Gloria would beg her to take a few bites, and Linda would smile that empty smile and say she wasn't hungry. Then she stopped sleeping. Isaiah would hear her at night, pacing the hallway, or sitting in the living room in the dark, staring at nothing. Sometimes she would hold their father's photograph and whisper to it, conversations Isaiah couldn't quite hear. Then she stopped talking. The woman who used to sing in the kitchen, who used to tell the boys stories at bedtime, who used to laugh so loud the neighbors could hear, that woman disappeared. In her place was a ghost. A shell. A body going through the motions, while the soul had already departed. One morning, she didn't wake up. Isaiah was 8 years old. He was the one who found her. He had gone to her room to tell her he was ready for school, and she was lying in bed so still, so peaceful, that at first he thought she was just sleeping. "Mom?" He shook her shoulder. "Mom, wake up. I'm going to be late." She didn't move. "Mom?" Her hand was cold. The rest of that day was a blur. Ambulances, police, neighbors gathering on the lawn, Gloria collapsing in the doorway, Darnell holding Isaiah so tight he could barely breathe. At the funeral, Isaiah stood at her grave, holding his brother's hand, watching the coffin lower into the ground. The priest was saying something about heaven and peace and God's plan, but Isaiah wasn't listening. He was making a promise. "I will never let anyone hurt this family again." He was just a child. He didn't know what that promise would cost. Their father, James Green, had been a mechanic. A good one. The best in the neighborhood, people said. He could fix anything with an engine. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, lawnmowers, even the ancient generator at the community center that everyone else had given up on. People came from all over the South Side to his little garage, and he never turned anyone away, even if they couldn't pay. "A man's word is his bond," James used to say, "and my word is, I'll help you if I can." He was 48 now, but Isaiah still remembered him as he was 10 years ago, strong, with broad shoulders and calloused hands, and a laugh that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. He used to throw Isaiah up in the air and catch him, spinning him around until they were both dizzy with joy. "Again, Daddy, again!" And James would always do it again. No matter how tired he was, no matter how long his day had been, he always had time for his sons. The day they took him away, Isaiah was 6 years old. It was a Saturday afternoon in early spring. The weather was finally warming up after a brutal Chicago winter, and James had set up Isaiah's little basketball hoop in the driveway, a cheap plastic thing from the discount store, barely 4 feet tall, but to Isaiah it was the Madison Square Garden. They were playing one-on-one, or rather, James was pretending to play while letting Isaiah score every shot. "Oh no, you got me again," James would laugh, clutching his chest in mock defeat as Isaiah's little plastic ball bounced off the rim and somehow went in. "You're too good, little man. You're going to play for the Bulls someday." Isaiah giggled and retrieved the ball, lining up another shot. That was when the police cars came. 4 of them, converging on their little street like they were responding to a bank robbery. 8 officers got out, hands on their weapons, faces hard and hostile. They moved like they were raiding a drug kingpin, not approaching a mechanic playing basketball with his 6-year-old son. The one in front, the one who seemed to be in charge, was named Derek Morrison. He was 35 then, with close-cropped hair and cold eyes and a permanent sneer that made him look like the whole world disgusted him. "James Green?" James set down the basketball. His smile faded, replaced by the careful, neutral expression that every black man in America learned to wear around police officers. "Yes, sir, that's me. What can I do for you?" Morrison's sneer deepened. "You're under arrest for assault on a police officer and resisting arrest." The words didn't make sense. Isaiah saw his father's face twist in confusion. "Assault? Officer, there must be some mistake. I haven't assaulted anyone. I've been here all day with my son." Morrison didn't let him finish. He closed the distance in 2 quick steps, grabbed James by the collar of his work shirt, and slammed him face first onto the hood of the police car. The impact made a sound Isaiah would never forget. A hollow, meaty thud, like something breaking. James's face pressed against the hot metal of the car. His arms were wrenched behind his back. Handcuffs clicked tight around his wrists. "Daddy!" Isaiah screamed. James turned his head, cheek scraped and bleeding, and looked at his son. Even with 4 officers holding him down, even with his arms twisted painfully behind his back, his eyes were calm and sad. "Isaiah, listen to me. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? Whatever they say, whatever happens, Daddy didn't do anything wrong. Don't ever forget that." "Daddy!" They dragged him to the car, shoved him into the back seat, slammed the door. Isaiah ran toward the car, but one of the officers blocked his path. "Stay back, kid." "That's my daddy! Where are you taking my daddy?" The officer didn't answer. He just got back in his car, and the convoy pulled away, lights flashing, leaving Isaiah alone in the driveway. The basketball rolled slowly down the driveway and into the street. Isaiah stood there, frozen, watching until the cars turned the corner and disappeared. He didn't cry. Not then. The tears came later. Every night for a year, James Green was convicted of assault on a police officer. The trial lasted less than a day. The only evidence was Officer Morrison's testimony, a detailed, confident account of how James had approached him in a parking lot, became aggressive, and punched him in the chest when Morrison tried to calm him down. There was also a medical report claiming Morrison had suffered bruising to the chest consistent with being punched. The report was signed by a doctor at Cook County Hospital, stamped and official. No video, no independent witnesses, no physical evidence besides a doctor's note that could have described anything from a punch to bumping into a door. Just the word of a white cop against a black man from the South Side. The public defender assigned to James's case, a tired, overworked man named Patterson who had 47 other clients, met James for 15 minutes before the trial. He advised him to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. "It's the smart play," Patterson said. "The jury's not going to believe you over a police officer. They never do. Take the deal, do your time, get back to your family." James refused. "I won't admit to something I didn't do. I won't let my sons grow up thinking their father is a criminal." So he went to trial. And he lost. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty, 8 years in state prison. Linda Green lasted 2 more years after that. Then, she was gone too. Darnell was 14 when he became the man of the house. He was supposed to start high school that fall with a basketball scholarship to St. Ignatius, one of the best prep schools in Chicago. Scouts had already started watching him. People said he had a shot at Division I, maybe even the NBA if he kept developing. He gave it all up. The day after their mother's funeral, Darnell walked into the kitchen where Gloria was sitting, staring at nothing, and said, "I'm going to get a job." "Baby, you're 14 kids." "I know how old I am, Grandma. But somebody's got to help pay the bills. Somebody's got to take care of Isaiah. Dad's gone. Mom's gone. It's just us now." He got a job at a grocery store, bagging groceries after school and on weekends. Then a job at a warehouse, stacking boxes. Then another warehouse, loading trucks. He made sure Isaiah did his homework every night. Made sure he had food, clothes, a roof over his head. Made sure he knew he was loved, even when the world seemed determined to teach him otherwise. "I promised Mom," Darnell told Isaiah once, late at night when neither of them could sleep. The words came out slowly, painfully, like they cost him something to say. "Before she died, I held her hand and I promised, I'll take care of Isaiah. No matter what, I'll never let anyone separate us." He kept that promise. For 8 years, through exhaustion and poverty and a system that seemed designed to crush them, Darnell kept that promise. Until the night everything fell apart. June 14th, a warm Tuesday evening. There was a protest in Grant Park, peaceful, organized, legal. Thousands of people marching for justice after another unarmed black teenager was shot by police 3 weeks earlier. The victim's name was Marcus Williams. He was 15 years old. He had been walking home from a friend's house when a police officer mistook his cell phone for a gun. Marcus ran. The officer shot him 4 times, in the back. Marcus died on the sidewalk, less than a block from his home. The officer was placed on paid administrative leave. That was it. That was the consequence for killing a 15-year-old boy. The protest was supposed to be peaceful, and for most of the evening, it was. Thousands of people walking, chanting, holding signs, families with children, elderly folks in wheelchairs, a sea of humanity demanding to be heard. Darnell wasn't there to protest. He was there as a volunteer medic. He had just finished his EMT clinical rotations, and the protest organizers had put out a call for medical volunteers. Darnell showed up with his first aid kit, wearing a bright yellow vest with "Medic" written in reflective letters. "People are going to get hurt out there," he told Isaiah before leaving. "Pepper spray, stampedes, rubber bullets. Someone's got to help them." Isaiah wanted to go. Darnell refused. "You've got finals next week. Stay home, study. I'll be back by midnight." "But..." "No buts, Isaiah. I need you to be smart. That means staying out of trouble. Promise me." Isaiah promised. He would regret that promise for the rest of his life. The protest started peacefully, but at 9:30 p.m., something changed. Later, there would be arguments about what happened. Some said a protester threw a water bottle at police. Others said the police attacked without provocation. Video footage would be inconclusive, showing chaos but no clear trigger. What was clear was this. At 9:30 p.m., the police moved in. Tear gas canisters arced through the air, trailing white smoke. Rubber bullets cracked like thunder. The orderly march became a stampede as thousands of people tried to run in every direction at once. Darnell was near the back of the crowd, treating minor injuries, twisted ankles, dehydration, anxiety attacks. When the chaos started, he stayed put. People needed help. That was what he was there for. He was kneeling beside an elderly woman who had been trampled in the stampede, wrapping a bandage around a deep gash on her leg, when Sergeant Derek Morrison appeared. 10 years had changed Morrison. He had been promoted twice since arresting James Green. He was head of the tactical unit now, with a reputation for tough policing that the department praised and the community feared. He walked up behind Darnell, looked down at the young black man kneeling on the ground, and smiled. The smile of a man who sees an opportunity. What happened next was captured on 3 different cell phone videos, all of which would later appear on social media, all of which would show the same thing. Morrison approached Darnell from behind. There was no contact between them, none whatsoever. Morrison simply fell. He dropped to one knee, grabbed his chest, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Assault! He assaulted me! Officer down!" 4 officers materialized out of nowhere. They tackled Darnell, drove his face into the concrete, wrenched his arms behind his back until something in his shoulder popped. "I didn't touch him!" Darnell screamed. "I was helping her! Check the video! I didn't touch anyone!" They didn't listen. They never did. In the back of the police van, away from any cameras, 2 officers took turns beating Darnell until he stopped screaming. Then they beat him some more. "That's for your daddy," one of them whispered in his ear. "Sergeant Morrison, remember." Then they beat him some more. "That's for your daddy," one of them whispered in his ear. "Sergeant Morrison remembers." At 2:17 a.m., Isaiah's phone rang. He had been asleep, or trying to sleep, waiting for Darnell to come home. The sound of the ringtone cut through the silence like a knife. Unknown number, Chicago area code. Isaiah answered. "Is this a family member of Darnell Green?" The voice was cold, official, utterly devoid of emotion. Isaiah's blood turned to ice. "Yes, I'm his brother. What happened? Is he okay?" "Darnell Green has been arrested and charged with assault on a police officer. He's being held without bail pending arraignment tomorrow morning. Isaiah couldn't breathe. The room spun around him. Assault? That's not possible. Darnell wouldn't... I'm just providing notification, sir. You can contact the Cook County Jail for more information. The line went dead. Isaiah sat in the dark, phone still pressed to his ear, trying to process what he had just heard. It didn't make sense. Darnell was the gentlest person he knew. He had dedicated his life to helping people. He would never... Then it hit him. Assault on a police officer. The same charge, the same words. He ran to his grandmother's room and shook her awake. "Grandma! Grandma, wake up! It's Darnell! He's been arrested!" Gloria sat up slowly, her eyes foggy with sleep. But as Isaiah's words registered, the fog cleared, and Isaiah saw something he had never seen before in his grandmother's eyes. Terror. Pure, absolute terror. "What did you say?" "Assault on a police officer. They're holding him without bail." Gloria's face crumpled. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just folded in on herself, like all the strength that had held her together for 68 years suddenly evaporated. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, not again. Lord, please, not again." Isaiah felt a chill run down his spine. "Grandma, what do you mean, again?" Gloria looked at him with eyes that had seen too much, lost too much, survived too much. "Your father. The same words, the same charge, the same—" She couldn't finish. But Isaiah understood. He went back to his room and pulled up the arrest report on his laptop. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely type. Arresting officer, Sergeant Derek Morrison, the same man who had destroyed his father 10 years ago. Now destroying his brother. Same charge, same evidence, same playbook. Isaiah sat in the dark, staring at the screen, and felt something cold and hard crystallize in his chest. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was a pattern, and patterns could be exposed. The trial happened 6 months later. It was a formality. Everyone in the courtroom knew the outcome before it began. Diana Russell was the public defender assigned to Darnell's case. She was 34 years old, smart, passionate, and genuinely cared about her clients. Isaiah could see it in her eyes, in the way she leaned forward when Darnell spoke, in the notes she scribbled furiously during every meeting. But she was drowning. Diana had 40 active cases, 40 families depending on her, 40 lives in her hands. She worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and it still wasn't enough. There was never enough time. "I'm going to do everything I can," Diana told them before the trial. "But I need you to understand something. The judge assigned to this case is Richard Caldwell. He's been on the bench for 25 years. He has the highest conviction rate in Cook County." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "In 25 years, Judge Caldwell has never, not once, ruled in favor of a defendant in an assault on officer case. Not once. I need you to understand what we're up against." Gloria gripped her Bible tighter. "But Darnell is innocent. We have videos." "I know, I've seen them. They clearly show Darnell didn't touch Morrison. But Caldwell will find a reason to exclude them. He always does." She was right. The trial lasted 90 minutes. Diana tried to introduce the cell phone videos from social media, footage that clearly showed Darnell kneeling over an injured woman, Morrison approaching from behind, Morrison falling with no contact whatsoever. Caldwell rejected them. "Social media videos don't meet evidentiary standards for authenticity. Motion denied." Diana tried to call witnesses, other volunteer medics who had been there that night, who had seen Darnell treating the injured woman when Morrison appeared. Caldwell denied them. These witnesses were not disclosed in pretrial discovery. Motion denied. Diana tried to cross-examine Morrison about his history, the pattern of accusations against black men, the suspicious consistency of his testimony, the fact that his previous arrest of James Green had used the exact same language. Caldwell shut her down. You will confine your questions to the incident in question, counselor. Any further attempts to impugn the character of a decorated police officer will result in sanctions. The trial was a performance. The verdict was predetermined. Guilty. Sentence: 18 months suspended, 3 years probation, permanent violent offender status on his record. Darnell Green would never become an EMT. No agency would hire someone with assault on their record. His dream, the only thing that had kept him going through 8 years of night shifts and exhaustion, was dead. After the trial, Isaiah followed Darnell into the courthouse hallway. "You have to appeal. We have to fight this." Darnell turned around. His eyes were empty, hollow, like something inside him had died. "Isaiah, stop! But the videos prove you didn't do anything. We can take this to a higher court. We can—" "You think that matters?" Darnell's voice was flat, dead. "You think truth matters? Evidence matters?" He grabbed Isaiah's shoulders. Not hard, but firm. "Look at Dad. 8 years for something he didn't do. 10 years later, still rotting in that cell. And now me." His grip tightened. "Listen to me carefully, Isaiah. If I appeal, they'll dig deeper. They'll investigate everything. They'll find out you were at the edge of the protest that night, just for a few minutes, just to check on me. You're 16, still a minor, but they'll find a way to drag you into this. They'll say you were an accomplice. They'll put your name in the system." "I don't care about me." "Well, I do," Darnell's voice cracked. "You're the only thing I have left to care about. You're smart, Isaiah. Smarter than me, smarter than Dad, smarter than anyone in this family. You're going to graduate. You're going to get that scholarship. You're going to get out of here and make something of yourself." His eyes were wet now, and I am not going to let them take that away from you. You understand? This is my choice. I'm accepting the verdict. End of discussion. He let go of Isaiah's shoulders and walked away. Isaiah stood alone in that courthouse hallway, surrounded by people who didn't see him, didn't care about him, didn't know that his entire world had just collapsed. His hands were clenched so tight that his nails dug into his palms, drawing blood. "I made a promise. I promised I would never let anyone hurt this family again." He had failed. But he wasn't finished. That night, Isaiah locked himself in his room and cried, not from sadness but from rage. Pure, white-hot, righteous rage. Then he wiped his face, opened his laptop, and typed into the search bar, "How to file an appeal without a lawyer in Illinois." For 6 months, Isaiah lived 2 lives. At school, he was the same quiet kid he had always been. Good grades, perfect attendance, no trouble. Teachers barely noticed him. Classmates thought he was shy. After school, he became someone else entirely. Every day, as soon as the final bell rang, Isaiah took the bus downtown to the Harold Washington Library, the main branch, with its towering glass walls and endless stacks of books. He found a desk in the back corner of the law section, away from prying eyes, and he studied. He started with the basics, the Illinois Code of Criminal Procedure, 800 pages of dense technical language. He read it 3 times, cover to cover, making notes on every section that might be relevant to Darnell's case. Then he moved to case law. People v. Rodriguez, a landmark ruling on the admissibility of video evidence. Brady v. Maryland, the prosecution's obligation to share exculpatory evidence. Illinois v. Gates, standards for establishing probable cause. He memorized precedents, legal arguments, the exact language judges use to accept or reject evidence. He learned the appeals process, the timelines, the forms, the requirements. He learned what judges looked for and what they dismissed. He learned how to argue like a lawyer without ever setting foot in a law school. The librarian noticed him. Walter Bennett was 55 years old, quiet and observant, the kind of man who saw everything and said nothing. He had worked at the Harold Washington Library for 23 years, and in all that time, he had never seen anything quite like Isaiah Green. A teenage kid, alone, surrounded by law books that would intimidate most adults, scribbling notes for hours on end, never giving up, never slowing down. For 2 weeks, Mr. Bennett just watched. Then, one evening, he walked over to Isaiah's desk and placed a small slip of paper next to his notebook. Isaiah looked up. LexisNexis, Mr. Bennett said quietly. It's a legal database. Professional lawyers use it. Usually costs hundreds of dollars a month. On the slip of paper was a username and password. Why are you helping me? Mr. Bennett was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, heavy with old pain. My father was wrongfully convicted. 40 years ago. They said he robbed a convenience store on the west side. He was 20 miles away at the time, working a double shift at the factory. Didn't matter. He was black. He matched the description. That was enough. He paused. He died in prison. Heart attack. 3 months before the real robber confessed. Mr. Bennett looked at Isaiah with eyes that understood. I was too young to help my father. But you're not too young, and I'm not too old to help you. He walked away without another word. Isaiah used that database every single day for the next 4 months. His best friend Jasmine Carter found out by accident. She caught him researching case law on a school computer during lunch break. Jasmine was 16, the same age as Isaiah, with natural hair and sharp eyes and a mind that worked faster than most computers. What are you doing? Isaiah minimized the window, but it was too late. Is that legal research? Isaiah, are you trying to appeal Darnell's case yourself? Keep your voice down. You're 16 years old. You can't take on a judge. You can't fight the whole system. Watch me. Jasmine stared at him for a long moment. Isaiah expected her to argue, to try to talk him out of it, to call him crazy. Instead, she sat down next to him. What do you need? Isaiah blinked. What? You heard me. What do you need? I'm good with computers, social media, research. If you're going to do this stupid, impossible, suicidal thing, she smiled, then you're going to need help. That night, they sat in Jasmine's basement, laptops open, scouring social media for footage from the night of the protest. They found 3 videos, 3 different angles, all showing the same thing. Darnell kneeling beside an injured woman, Morrison approaching from behind, Morrison falling with no contact whatsoever, Morrison screaming assault. The videos were time-stamped, geolocated, authentic. This proves Darnell didn't touch him, Jasmine said, excitement creeping into her voice. This is amazing! It's a start, Isaiah said. But it's not enough. Caldwell already rejected video evidence once. I need to understand why. I need to know what's really going on. What do you mean? Why does Caldwell keep convicting people? Why does Morrison keep making these arrests? There has to be a pattern, a reason. He was right. In the 5th week of his research, digging through public financial records late one night, Isaiah found it. CoreCivic. The name appeared in a SEC filing, a routine corporate disclosure that most people would never read. But Isaiah read everything. CoreCivic was one of the largest private prison companies in America. They operated detention facilities across the country, including several in Illinois. Their business model was simple. The state paid them a fixed rate per prisoner per day. More prisoners meant more profit. Isaiah kept digging. He found CoreCivic's board of directors, and there, listed clearly in their public filings, was a name that made his blood freeze. Melissa Caldwell, Judge Richard Caldwell's wife. She had joined the board in 2018. Her stock holdings in the company were worth $2.3 million. Isaiah cross-referenced Caldwell's conviction statistics. The judge had a 94% conviction rate, the highest in Cook County, higher than any other judge in the state. and 78% of the people he convicted of violent crimes were sent to core civic facilities. Isaiah sat back in his chair, mind racing. This wasn't justice. This was a business. Caldwell was sending people to prison to make his wife rich. Morrison was the supplier, manufacturing criminals out of innocent black men. Core Civic was the customer, paying for each body that filled their cells. And at the center of it all was a man in a black robe who thought no one would ever figure it out. Isaiah had figured it out. Now he had to prove it. The night before the appeal hearing, Isaiah sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by 200 pages of documentation, color-coded tabs, handwritten notes, a timeline of events stretching back 25 years. Gloria came out of her bedroom in her nightgown, holding a cup of tea. "You're still awake." Couldn't sleep. She sat down across from him, her arthritic hands wrapped around the warm cup. "Are you scared?" Isaiah nodded, terrified. "Then why are you doing this?" Isaiah looked at her, this woman who had lost so much, her son imprisoned for a decade, her daughter-in-law dead of grief, her grandson convicted of a crime he didn't commit, and through it all, she had kept going, kept praying, kept believing. "Because I'm more scared of losing Darnell than I am of anything Caldwell can do to me. Dad's been gone for 10 years. I won't let them take anyone else." Gloria reached across the table and took his hand. Her grip was weak, but warm. "The Lord gave you that brain for a reason, child. It wasn't so you could keep quiet." She stood up slowly, her joints creaking with age. "I'll be in church tomorrow praying the whole time, every second." "I know, Grandma." She paused at the doorway. "Your mama would be so proud of you, Isaiah, and your daddy too. Whatever happens tomorrow, they would be so proud." She left. Isaiah looked down at his notes. At the top of the first page, circled in red, were 12 words. Core Civic, $2.3 million. Melissa Caldwell. Tomorrow, he would say those words out loud in a courtroom, and nothing would ever be the same. The moment Caldwell told him to go home, Isaiah felt every eye in the courtroom waiting for him to crumble. The laughter, the phones recording, the absolute certainty on their faces that this black kid from the ghetto would tuck his tail and run. He didn't move. "Your Honor." His voice was calm, clear, no tremor. "Under Section 8.1 of the Illinois Code of Criminal Procedure, any citizen has the right to self-representation if approved in advance. I filed my motion 14 days ago. It was approved by the court clerk. Page 3, Section B of your file." Caldwell's smirk flickered. He glanced at his clerk, who nodded reluctantly. The smirk faded. "Fine. You can cite a statute. Impressive for a teenager, but knowing how to read doesn't mean—" "I'm not here to debate my right to represent myself." Isaiah cut him off. "That's already established. I'm here to ask you one question." Dead silence. In 25 years on the bench, no one had ever interrupted Richard Caldwell in his own courtroom. "You dare cut me off?" Caldwell's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Richard Caldwell in his own courtroom. "You dare cut me off?" Caldwell's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Do you understand that I can hold you in contempt right now? That I can have you removed and charged?" "I understand, Your Honor. But before you do that, I think you'll want to hear my question." Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Something flickered in them. Curiosity, perhaps, or the beginning of unease. "Fine. Ask your question." Isaiah took a breath. "Core Civic, $2.3 million. Melissa Caldwell." He paused. "Would you like me to continue, Your Honor?" The silence that followed was unlike anything Isaiah had ever experienced. It had weight, substance. It pressed down on the courtroom like a physical force. Caldwell's face changed. It happened fast, so fast that if you blinked, you would miss it. The smirk vanished. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving them pale and waxy. His hand, the one holding his expensive pen, began to tremble. He set it down quickly, hiding his hands beneath the bench where no one could see them shake. What did you just say? Isaiah didn't flinch. CoreCivic is a private prison company, the largest in America. They operate detention facilities across the country, including several here in Illinois. Their business model is simple. The state pays them $45 per day for every inmate they house. He opened his folder, revealing the thick stack of documents inside. Your wife, Melissa Caldwell, has been on the CoreCivic Board of Directors since 2018. Her stock holdings in the company are worth approximately $2.3 million. Isaiah looked directly at Caldwell. You have the highest conviction rate in Cook County, 94%, and 78% of the people you convict of violent crimes are sent to CoreCivic facilities. He let the numbers hang in the air. You told me to go home. You looked at me and saw a black kid from the ghetto who wasn't worth your time. But I spent 6 months preparing for this moment. I have 200 pages of documentation, public records, SEC filings, conviction statistics, all of it legal, all of it verifiable. He paused. You underestimated me, Your Honor, and that was your first mistake. Caldwell sat frozen. For the first time in 25 years, Richard Caldwell, the most powerful judge in Cook County, was speechless. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The clerk stared at her papers, afraid to look up. In the gallery, Gloria's prayers grew louder, her lips moving in fervent whispers. Finally, Caldwell spoke. His voice was different now, controlled, careful, every word measured. You're making serious accusations, young man. Very serious accusations. If you can't back them up with evidence, I'll have you charged with defamation and contempt of court. I can back them up. You have 10 minutes, not a second more. 10 minutes is more than enough. Isaiah connected his laptop to the courtroom's display screen. The first video appeared. This footage was recorded at 9:47 p.m. on the night of the protest. The timestamp and geolocation have been verified by Dr. Angela Matthews, a forensic digital analyst at Northwestern University. Her report is included in my documentation, pages 47 through 52. The video played. 45 seconds of footage. Darnell kneeling beside an injured woman, his hands wrapped in bandages, his medic vest clearly visible. Morrison approaching from behind. Morrison falling with no contact whatsoever. Morrison screaming assault. In this video, Isaiah said, my brother's hands never leave the patient he's treating. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't make any sudden movements. His back is to Sergeant Morrison the entire time. He turned to face Caldwell. So how exactly did he punch Sergeant Morrison in the chest? The prosecutor stood up quickly. Your Honor, social media videos aren't admissible. Under People v. Rodriguez, 2019, Isaiah interrupted, video evidence from third-party sources is admissible if metadata can be verified and chain of custody established. I have a forensic analysis confirming this video is authentic and unedited. The metadata has not been tampered with. The chain of custody is documented. He flipped to a new page. The prosecution's objection has no legal basis. The prosecutor sat down. Isaiah continued. Now let's discuss the medical evidence. He pulled up another document on the screen. This is the medical report submitted to this court during my brother's trial. It states that Sergeant Morrison suffered bruising to the chest consistent with being punched. This report was used as the primary physical evidence to support the assault charge. He pulled up a second document. But this is the original hospital record, obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request filed 3 months ago. Isaiah read aloud, his voice clear and steady. Patient presents with minor contusion to anterior chest wall. Bruising pattern inconsistent with impact from a closed fist. Pattern more consistent with self-infliction or contact with a hard surface, such as furniture or pavement. He looked at Caldwell. That assessment, The part about the bruising being inconsistent with a punch was deleted from the version of the report submitted to this court. Someone altered the medical evidence. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor was sweating visibly. And then, from the back of the room, a woman stood up. "Your Honor, I'm attorney Diana Russell. I was the public defender assigned to Darnell Green's original trial. I'm requesting to enter this case as counsel for the appellant." Caldwell's face reddened. "You're not on the case file? I filed my appearance 15 minutes ago. Under Rule 714B, counsel may enter an appearance at any time before final judgment is rendered." Diana walked forward and stood beside Isaiah. She looked at this 16-year-old who had done what she couldn't, what she had been too overwhelmed, too beaten down, too trapped by the system to do, and she nodded. "Your Honor," Diana said, her voice strong and clear, "the evidence presented today suggests prosecutorial misconduct, evidence tampering, and possible criminal conspiracy. I move to continue this hearing for a full investigation." Caldwell's hands gripped the edge of the bench. His knuckles were white. 2 weeks, he said finally, his voice strained. "Court is continued for 2 weeks for evidentiary review." He slammed his gavel and practically ran from the bench. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Diana grabbed Isaiah's arm. "What you did in there? I've been practicing law for 10 years. I've argued cases in front of dozens of judges, and I have never seen anything like that." "I had to," Isaiah said simply. "No one else was going to do it." Diana's expression turned serious. "Isaiah, listen to me carefully. You just humiliated one of the most powerful men in Chicago. You showed him, in front of witnesses, in front of reporters, that you have evidence that could destroy his career, his marriage, his freedom." She gripped his arm harder. "Men like Richard Caldwell don't take that lying down. He's going to come after you, your family, everyone you care about. He has connections everywhere. The police department, the prosecutor's office, the prison system. He can make your life a living hell." Isaiah nodded slowly. "I know." "Do you? Do you really understand what you've started?" Isaiah thought about his father, rotting in a prison cell for 10 years for a crime he didn't commit. He thought about his brother, his dreams destroyed, his future stolen. He thought about his mother, dying of grief because the system crushed everything she loved. "I understand," he said, "and I'm not going to stop." Diana looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, a small, sad smile. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the craziest, maybe both." She let go of his arm. "Be careful, Isaiah, please. Be very, very careful." The retaliation began within 72 hours. Isaiah was walking home from school on Thursday afternoon when he noticed the police car. It was parked at the end of his block, engine running, 2 officers inside, watching. When Isaiah walked past, the car started to follow him. Slowly, deliberately, making sure he knew he was being watched. It followed him all the way to his front door. That night, at 3 a.m., a brick came crashing through their living room window. The sound woke everyone in the house. Gloria screaming, Isaiah running downstairs, glass scattered across the floor. No note, no message, just shattered glass and a warning. "We know where you live." Gloria wanted to call the police. Isaiah stopped her. "Grandma, who do you think threw that brick?" She understood. She didn't call. 3 days later, an article appeared on a local news website. The headline read, "Southside student accused of academic fraud, violent history." The article, citing anonymous sources, claimed that Isaiah Green was being investigated by his school for cheating on standardized tests. It also claimed he had a history of violent outbursts and had been suspended multiple times for fighting. Every word was a lie. But the school board was required to investigate any published allegations, and pending investigation, Isaiah's scholarship, his only path to college, was suspended. "This is temporary," the guidance counselor assured him. "Once we clear things up, How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe a month. Isaiah nodded and walked out. He didn't have a month. The next blow came by phone. Mr. Green, this is Warden Phillips at Stateville Correctional Center. I'm calling to inform you that your father, James Green, has been transferred to the segregation unit pending a security review. Isaiah's stomach dropped. Segregation? Why? What did he do? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of his case. Can I visit him? Can I talk to him? No visitation is permitted during the security review. No phone calls. No mail. For how long? I'm not at liberty to discuss that either. The line went dead. Isaiah sat in his room staring at the wall and finally understood what was happening. Caldwell had connections everywhere. Police, prosecutors, prison wardens, newspaper editors. He was sending a message piece by piece, systematically dismantling everything Isaiah cared about. Drop this, or I will destroy everything you love. And then Terrence Williams appeared. Diana received an anonymous email. Someone claiming to have information about the Darnell Green case. Someone willing to talk, but only in person, somewhere private, away from the city. They met at a coffee shop in a small town 50 miles outside Chicago. Diana, Isaiah, and a nervous-looking black man in his late 20s. Officer Terrence Williams. He was 29 years old. He had been with the Chicago Police Department for 6 years. And he looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. His eyes darted constantly around the coffee shop, never settling on anything, always watching for threats. His leg bounced under the table. His hands trembled when he lifted his coffee cup. I was there that night, Terrence said, his voice low and urgent. At the protest. I was part of Morrison's tactical unit. I saw what happened. Isaiah leaned forward. What did you see? I saw Morrison walk up behind your brother, saw him look around to make sure the cameras were pointed the right way. And then I saw him fall, just fall, like he'd practiced it. Terrence's leg bounced faster. Nobody touched him. Your brother never even turned around. Morrison fell, grabbed his chest, and started screaming assault. And the rest of us, we did what we were told. Why are you coming forward now? Diana asked. The trial was 6 months ago. Terrence stared into his coffee for a long moment. Because I can't sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see Morrison's face. That smile he had when he gave us the order. Write it the way I tell you. Don't ask questions. Do what you're told. He looked up at Isaiah. I went along with it because I was scared. I have a wife, a baby on the way. I can't afford to lose my job. I can't afford to be the cop who turns on other cops. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. But I can't live with this anymore. This is a recording from an internal meeting at the precinct. Morrison talking about quotas. How many arrests we need each month to keep the core civic contracts active. He mentions protection from above. I think he's talking about Caldwell. Isaiah took the drive. His heart was racing. This is incredible. This could change everything. Just be careful, Terrence said. These people don't play by the rules. They don't fight fair. And they'll do anything to protect themselves. Isaiah believed him. He shouldn't have. The night before the continued hearing, Darnell was walking home from his shift at the warehouse. He had taken the same route for months, a shortcut through the alley behind St. Michael's Church. It saved him 10 minutes, and those 10 minutes mattered when you'd been loading trucks for 8 hours and just wanted to collapse into bed. He never saw them coming. 4 men in ski masks stepped out of the shadows. They didn't say a word. They didn't have to. The first punch caught Darnell in the stomach, doubling him over. The second crashed into his jaw, spinning him around. Then they were on him, fists and feet and something metal, a pipe or a bat, crashing against his ribs, his back, his skull. Darnell tried to fight back. He managed to land one punch, heard someone grunt in pain. But there were 4 of them, and 1 of him, and they beat him until he stopped moving. They left him bleeding on the concrete, unconscious, barely breathing. A homeless man found him 30 minutes later and called 911. Isaiah got the call at midnight. He ran the entire way to the hospital, 12 blocks, his lungs burning, his heart pounding, his mind screaming, "Please, God, no, please, God, no, please, God, no." He burst through the emergency room doors, screaming his brother's name. "Darnell Green! Where is Darnell Green?" A nurse tried to calm him down. Security moved toward him, and then a doctor appeared, a tired-looking woman with blood on her scrubs. "Are you family?" "I'm his brother. Where is he? Is he okay?" The doctor's face was carefully neutral. "Your brother is in the ICU. He has 3 broken ribs, a fractured skull, and significant internal bleeding. He's in surgery right now. We're doing everything we can." Isaiah collapsed against the wall. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. "Is he going to live?" "We're doing everything we can," the doctor repeated. And that was all she would say. Isaiah wasn't allowed to see Darnell for 6 hours. He sat in the waiting room the entire time, staring at nothing, praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. When they finally let him into the ICU, he barely recognized his brother. Darnell's face was swollen beyond recognition, purple and black and wrong, barely human. Tubes snaked from his arms, his nose, his chest. Machines beeped in steady, mournful rhythms. A ventilator breathed for him. And on the wall above the bed, written in black marker, were 7 words. "Drop it, or next time he won't wake up." Isaiah collapsed into the chair beside the bed. He took his brother's hand, the hand that had held his at their mother's funeral, that had caught him when he fell, that had never let him down, and he broke. For the first time in 6 months, Isaiah Green sobbed. All the walls he had built, all the defenses he had constructed, crumbled into dust. The tears poured down his face. His shoulders shook. His whole body trembled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Darnell, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of this is my fault." Gloria arrived an hour later. When she saw her grandson lying in that bed, the boy who had given up everything to raise his little brother, who had sacrificed his dreams so others could have theirs, something inside her shattered. She fell to her knees beside Isaiah, clutching her Bible, sobbing prayers that made no sense. Then she turned to Isaiah. Her face was wet with tears, but her eyes were fierce with desperation. "Isaiah, stop this. Please, I'm begging you." "Grandma, your father is in solitary. Your brother is dying. If something happens to you," her voice broke. "I'm an old woman, Isaiah. Selfish. All I want is my family safe. Please, let it go. Let them win. I don't care anymore about justice. I just want my babies safe." Isaiah looked at her, at Darnell, at the message on the wall. He wanted to give up. Every cell in his body screamed at him to walk away, to save what was left, to surrender. But then he remembered something. The night they met, Terrence had asked about Darnell's schedule, what time he got off work, what route he took home. Isaiah had told him, casually, without thinking. Only Terrence knew that information. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He had been played. He had trusted someone, let his guard down, and Darnell was paying the price. Isaiah called Jasmine at 2 a.m. "The USB drive Terrence gave us. Can you verify if the files are authentic?" "Isaiah, it's 2 in the morning. Please, Jasmine, it's important." 30 minutes later, she called back. Her voice was shaking. "Isaiah, the files are fake. The metadata shows they were created 3 days ago, not 8 months like Terrence claimed. Someone manufactured this evidence." Isaiah's blood ran cold. Terrence wasn't a whistleblower. He was a spy. Morrison's man sent to infiltrate, to gain trust, to provide fake evidence that would discredit Isaiah in court, and to report Darnell's movements to the men who beat him half to death. He called Diana next. Her voice was shaking when she answered. Isaiah, they came to my office tonight. They destroyed everything. Files, computers, case documents, everything. Diana, they left a note. Her voice cracked. It said, you have a 5-year-old daughter. Think about that. Silence. Isaiah, I can't. I thought I was brave enough for this. I thought I could stand up to them. But when they threatened my daughter... She was crying now. I'm withdrawing from the case. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I can't risk my baby's life. I just can't. The line went dead. Isaiah sat alone in the hospital waiting room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped its steady rhythm. His brother was in the ICU, barely alive. His father was in solitary confinement, unreachable. His lawyer had abandoned him. His evidence was fake. His scholarship was gone. And the hearing was in 4 days. He had nothing left. The next morning, Isaiah went to the library. He didn't know why. Habit, maybe, or desperation, or just the need to be somewhere that wasn't the hospital. Walter Bennett was at his desk, same as always. When he saw Isaiah's face, the hollow eyes, the slumped shoulders, the defeated expression, he stood up immediately. What happened? Isaiah told him everything. The attack on Darnell, Terrence's betrayal, Diana's withdrawal, the threats, the destroyed evidence, the suspended scholarship. When he finished, Mr. Bennett was quiet for a long time. Then he walked to the back of the library, pulled a thick law book from the shelf and opened it. Inside, nestled between the pages, was a USB drive. I made a copy of your files 3 weeks ago, he said. Everything you compiled, just in case. Isaiah stared at him. Why would you do that? Mr. Bennett placed the drive in Isaiah's hand. Because my father died in prison for something he didn't do, and because I never had the courage to fight for him. He met Isaiah's eyes. You have that courage. Don't waste it. That night, Isaiah went back to the hospital. Darnell had been moved out of the ICU. Stable, the doctors said, but still critical. He was conscious now, barely, talking through swollen lips and broken teeth. Isaiah sat beside his brother's bed for hours, holding his hand, not speaking. Around midnight, Darnell's eyes fluttered open. Isaiah? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm here. Darnell tried to smile. It looked more like a grimace. You're still gonna do it, aren't you? Isaiah nodded. I have to. Darnell was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, painfully, he squeezed Isaiah's hand. Good. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Darnell? Shut up and listen. His voice was weak but firm. I spent my whole life telling you to keep your head down. Stay safe. Don't make waves. And look where it got me. He took a shaky breath. You're braver than me, little brother. Braver than Dad. Braver than anyone I know. So you go in there tomorrow, and you show them what happens when they mess with the Greens. Isaiah blinked back tears. I'll win, Darnell. I promise. I know you will. I know. The morning of the continued hearing, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread. Reporters from the Tribune filled the press section, notebooks open, pens ready. Representatives from Internal Affairs sat in the back row, watching with careful eyes. Community activists, church members, neighbors from the South Side. They filled every available seat, spilling into the hallway. Isaiah walked in alone. No lawyer, no backup, just a 16-year-old kid in his brother's white dress shirt carrying a folder of documents and a USB drive. Caldwell entered with confidence. He had heard about Diana's withdrawal, about the destroyed evidence. He had seen the articles discrediting Isaiah. He thought he had won. "Mr. Green," Caldwell said, settling into his chair, "I see your attorney has decided not to continue. Do you still wish to proceed without representation?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And do you have any new evidence to present?" Isaiah's heart pounded. The USB in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Without Diana to argue its admissibility, without anyone to back him up. "Your Honor, The courtroom doors burst open. Terrence Williams walked in. Isaiah's blood ran cold. The traitor. The spy. What is he doing here? But Terrence wasn't looking at Caldwell. He was looking at Isaiah. And in his hand was a different USB drive. "Your Honor," Terrence said, his voice shaking but clear. "My name is Officer Terrence Williams, Chicago Police Department. I'm here to testify for the appellant." Caldwell's confident expression flickered. "You're not on the witness list. Under Rule 6115, any witness with material information can be called to testify. I have material information." Terrence walked forward, past the prosecutor's table, past the gallery, until he stood in front of Isaiah. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "And I owe you the truth." He turned to face the court. 8 months ago, I was present when Sergeant Derek Morrison falsely accused Darnell Green of assault. I witnessed the incident. There was no contact. Morrison fell on his own. I saw it with my own eyes. Deep breath. 2 weeks ago, Sergeant Morrison ordered me to spy on Isaiah Green, to befriend him, to give him fabricated evidence, to report his family's movements so they could be discouraged. His voice cracked. "I'm the reason Darnell Green is in the hospital right now. I told them his schedule, his route home, what time he finished work. I didn't know they would. I didn't think they would, actually." He couldn't finish. "I've done terrible things. I've betrayed a 16-year-old kid who was just trying to save his brother. I did it because I was scared, because I was weak, because I cared more about my career than about doing what was right." He held up the USB drive. "But when I saw Darnell Green in that hospital bed, beaten half to death because of information I gave them, I couldn't live with it anymore. I made a copy of the original recording, the real one, unedited. Morrison talking about quotas, core civic, protection from above." He handed the drive to the court clerk. "I'm ready to face the consequences of what I've done. But first, let the truth be heard." The courtroom erupted. Caldwell banged his gavel, trying to restore order. And then the doors opened again. A woman walked in. She was in her 50s, elegant, wearing a designer suit that cost more than most people made in a month. She carried a leather briefcase in her perfectly manicured hand. Melissa Caldwell, the judge's wife. Every head turned. The noise died instantly. "What are you doing here?" Caldwell's voice was barely audible. Melissa walked forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She didn't look at her husband. She looked straight ahead, at the seal of justice mounted above the bench. "I'm Melissa Caldwell," she said, her voice clear and strong, "and I'm here to testify against my husband." The silence was absolute. "For 25 years, I've known what Richard does. I've watched him convict innocent people to fill Core Civic's facilities. I've counted the money that came in and pretended not to notice where it came from. I've looked the other way while he destroyed families, hundreds of families." She opened her briefcase. "I have financial records, bank statements, emails between Richard and Core Civic executives, 25 years of evidence that I was too much of a coward to use." She pulled out a thick stack of folders and handed them to the clerk. Then she turned and looked at Isaiah for the first time. "I've watched this trial from my living room. I've seen the news coverage, and today I saw something that changed everything." Her voice softened. I saw a 16-year-old black boy from the South Side walk into this courtroom alone. No money, no power, no connections, just the truth and the courage to speak it. And I watched my husband mock him, humiliate him, tell him to go home because he didn't have the breeding to stand in his presence. Her eyes were wet now. If a child can be that brave, if a child can stand up against everything my husband represents, then I have no more excuses, no more reasons to stay silent. She turned to Caldwell. His face was gray. His hands gripped the bench like he was drowning. "Richard, you're going to ask me why. Why now? Why like this?" She pointed at Isaiah. "Because of him. Because he showed me what courage looks like. And because I refuse to be a coward for one more day." Caldwell shot to his feet. "Melissa, you'll destroy our family, everything we've built." "No, Richard." Her voice was ice. "You destroyed our family 25 years ago. I'm just finally telling the truth about it." The doors opened one last time. 2 men in suits walked in, badges visible on their belts. "Judge Richard Caldwell," one of them said. "Internal Affairs. You're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation into corruption, bribery, and criminal conspiracy. Please come with us." Caldwell looked around the courtroom, at the reporters scribbling furiously, at the cameras, at the crowd staring in disbelief, at his wife, at Terrence, and finally, at Isaiah. Isaiah met his gaze. 25 years, Isaiah said quietly. "That's a long time to destroy innocent lives, Your Honor." Caldwell had no response. They led him away. The substitute judge reviewed the evidence for less than 10 minutes. "Based on the testimony and evidence presented, the conviction of Darnell Green is hereby vacated. The defendant is cleared of all charges." In the gallery, Gloria Green collapsed into tears, clutching her Bible to her chest. Darnell, who had insisted on being wheeled into the courtroom despite his injuries, reached out for his brother. Isaiah went to him, hugged him gently, carefully, mindful of the broken ribs and fractured skull. "You did it," Darnell whispered. "You actually did it." Isaiah held his brother tight. "We did it," he said. "All of us." 3 months later, Richard Caldwell was indicted on 46 counts of corruption, bribery, and criminal conspiracy. He was stripped of his judgeship, his law license, and his freedom. Bail was set at $2 million. He couldn't pay it. Derek Morrison was fired from the Chicago Police Department and charged with evidence tampering, perjury, assault, and conspiracy to commit assault. 23 other cases he had worked were reopened for review. Terrence Williams was suspended from the force and faced departmental charges. But he cooperated fully with investigators and testified against Morrison. At his hearing, he said, "I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can help fix it." CoreCivic's contract with the state of Illinois was suspended. A federal investigation was launched into their practices nationwide. And Internal Affairs opened a comprehensive review of every case Caldwell had presided over in the past decade, including the case of James Green. 8 months later, Stateville Correctional Center, 6 o'clock in the morning. Gloria, Darnell, and Isaiah stood outside the prison gates. It was February, cold, their breath misting in the air. Gloria held a small bouquet of flowers. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from anticipation. Darnell had healed well. The scars on his face had faded to thin lines. He was working again, not at the warehouse, but as an EMT at Southside Community Hospital. His record had been expunged. His dream was alive again. Isaiah stood slightly apart, not sure what to do with his hands. In a few months, he would graduate high school. His scholarship had been reinstated. He had been accepted to the University of Chicago, pre-law track. But none of that mattered right now. The gate buzzed. Slowly, heavily, it swung open. And James Green walked out. He was 48 years old. His hair had gone gray. His face was lined with a decade of prison food and bad sleep and fluorescent lights. He was thinner than Isaiah remembered, and he walked with a slight limp, a souvenir from a prison fight 5 years ago. But his eyes were the same, deep brown, warm, full of a love that 10 years of injustice couldn't extinguish. Gloria ran to him first. She threw herself into his arms and sobbed, huge, racking sobs that came from somewhere deep inside her, from the place where she had stored all the pain and fear and hope of the past decade. "My boy," she cried, "my baby boy. You're home. You're finally home." James held her tight, his own tears streaming silently down his face. Darnell went next. He wrapped his arms around his father, and for a long moment neither of them could speak. 10 years of lost time. 10 years of missed birthdays, missed holidays, missed everything. "I'm proud of you, son," James finally said. "You held this family together when I couldn't." "I just did what you taught me, Dad." Then James looked at Isaiah. The 6-year-old who had watched him get taken away was now taller than him, broader in the shoulders, with eyes that held a weight no 16-year-old should have to carry. "Isaiah," James's voice cracked. "You've grown so much." Isaiah couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. James walked toward him slowly, stopped in front of him, looked at him for a long, long moment. "You saved me," James said. "You saved your brother. You took on a system that's been destroying people like us for generations. And you beat it." He put his hands on Isaiah's shoulders. "Your mama used to say you were special, that God had plans for you. I didn't understand what she meant back then." His voice broke. "I understand now." Isaiah's eyes were burning. "I'm sorry it took so long, Dad. I should have." James pulled him into a hug. "Don't you dare apologize. Don't you ever apologize for being the bravest person I've ever known." Isaiah broke. All the months of pressure, the fear, the loneliness, the weight of carrying his family on his shoulders, finally found release. He cried in his father's arms, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt safe. They stood there in the prison gates, 4 people, 1 family, holding each other in the cold February morning. 10 years of injustice, finally made right, 2 years later. Isaiah's scholarship carried him through his first year at the University of Chicago. He majored in political science with a pre-law track. His professors said he had a gift, not just for understanding the law, but for seeing how it could be used as a weapon or a shield. Diana Russell started a nonprofit called Second Chance Legal Defense. It provided free representation to people fighting wrongful convictions. Isaiah worked there every summer, and sometimes weekends during the school year. Darnell became a full-fledged paramedic. He worked at Southside Community Hospital, the same hospital where he had nearly died, and he was good at it. The best, some said. James went back to work as a mechanic. He opened a small shop in the old neighborhood, nothing fancy, just honest work for honest pay. Every night he sat at the kitchen table while Isaiah studied, reading law books alongside him. "Just trying to understand what my son does," he would say with a smile. Gloria still went to church every Sunday, still prayed every night. But now when she talked about her grandsons, her voice didn't carry the old fear. It carried pride. The community center was small. 20 families filled the folding chairs, mothers who had lost sons to the system, fathers fighting to prove their innocence, siblings trying to save their brothers and sisters. Isaiah, now 18, stood at the front of the room. "I know you're scared," he said. "I was scared too. Every day for almost a year I woke up wondering if that would be the day they got to me." He looked at their faces, tired, hopeful, desperate. They want us to believe the system can't be changed, that people like us, people without money, without power, without connections, were born to lose. He shook his head. "But I'm standing here to tell you, that's a lie. We can fight. We can win. Not because we're stronger than them, we're not. But because we have something they can't take away. He paused. The truth. And the courage to speak it. In the 5 years that followed, Isaiah's organization helped overturn 23 wrongful convictions. 23 people walked free. 23 families reunited. 23 stories rewritten. He didn't become famous. There was no movie deal, no best-selling memoir, just the work. Day after day, case after case. Because he understood something most people never learn. Change doesn't happen in dramatic courtroom moments. It happens in the grind. In the thousands of hours reading documents, interviewing witnesses, fighting bureaucracy. It happens when you show up even when no one's watching. One person really can make a difference. Not by being a hero, by being stubborn enough to refuse to quit. Years later, when people asked Isaiah about that day in the courtroom, the day a judge told him to go home, and 30 seconds later realized his mistake, he always said the same thing. It wasn't courage, it was desperation. I didn't have any other choice. But that wasn't quite true. There's always a choice. There's always a moment when you can decide to give up, to accept defeat, to let the system win. Isaiah chose differently. And because of that choice, a corrupt judge is behind bars. A crooked cop lost his badge. A family was reunited. And somewhere, right now, another teenager is learning the same lesson. The system isn't as powerful as it pretends to be. Truth is the weapon they fear most. And one person, even a black kid from the South Side with nothing but determination and a library card, can change everything. The man who told a black teenager to go home is now serving 15 years in federal prison. The black teenager just passed the bar exam. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes.